demo is going to be a small automation that's going to show you how to add and delete users to an AWS Connect instance, which is this guy right here. So Amazon Connect is a cloud contact center, and for some user management, we're just going to automate the process of adding and deleting users. So let me show you what the code does. First, let's get everything deployed. Or maybe I should just explain it first. So, yeah, this is a Terraform manifest. Okay, so let's just kind of go through here and tell you what the actual automation is doing. First things first, we have a variable that's declaring the name of the bucket. Um, we want to identify what region in AWS we want to be deploying to. So that's what this character is right there, this US East 1. So here the S3 bucket is just taking the name that I set for the variable. So these are going to be like the most important parts of the deployment. It's going to be the permissions, the bucket policies. So basically what this bucket policy is, so we created this S3 bucket, and what this policy is saying here, it is saying, hey, allow this service, this Amazon Lambda function, to retrieve anything inside of this bucket. Okay, so this is a policy, and it's pointing to this bucket right here. So that's what this is saying. The Lambda function can perform any operation on this S3 bucket. Okay, and that's a policy. So moving on, this is the actual Lambda function that's getting deployed. So the Lambda function, I'll get into that in a second. But all this is doing, it's just deploying the Lambda function. Okay, and and the most important part about this this resource is going to be the role. So that kind of when you start deploying Lambda functions, you may get a lot of access denied statements in your logs. So we'll kind of go into why you're going to see that. But again, it's all about permissions, and it's all about the IAM statements, and making sure that we have the correct access to the resources that we want to work with in the Lambda function. So, so this resource is just deploying a Lambda function, and let me just go ahead and do that right now. So, so the name of the zip file. So this is basically pushing a zip file up to AWS Lambda. So I want to name it here. I'm about to delete it on this side so I can create it again, so I can get the updated code. So Lambda payload. So Lambda payload.zip, and the Lambda handler. This is the actual code that's being pushed up to Lambda that's gonna perform the operations that we're gonna get into in a second. All right, so let's go back here. So this is just basic bash. So I'm just creating a zip file, and that's named payload.zip, and I'm going to use the Lambda handler, not Pi, because whenever you deploy something to AWS Lambda, especially in Terraform, there's a couple of different ways, but it needs to be in a compressed format. So that's what the reason for that is. So I hit this. All right, it's back. So, so this is the IAM role for the Lambda. So anytime you have a role it always needs to, so any service, in order for it to perform any kind of function on another resource, it has to, you have to have an assumed role. So it has to be able to kind of change, or it actually has to be able to assume another kind of role that has more permissions and so forth. We're going to see what that looks like right here. So, so all this is saying is that the Lambda function itself can assume a role, and it can be modified to perform actions on different types of resources. So let's just look and see what that looks like. So this is the role, and so this is the policy for this Lambda function. All right. So basically, what this is saying here is this Lambda function, whenever it's deployed, we need to be able to look and see what's happening behind the scenes. And in order to do that, we create this function needs to be able to create logs. So that's what these statements are saying. So all the actions that we're going to be seeing in the logs right here in a moment are going to be because the Lambda policy has these statements here: create log group and create log stream, and all these other statements. And more importantly, so we're working with S3 and we're working with AWS Connect. So we also need to have a S3 statement inside of the Lambda function policy. And so this is just basically allows the Lambda function to just to perform one action on the S3 bucket. And this particular statement right here just says, hey, you can do whatever action you want on AWS Connect. Well, it's saying that yeah, you can do any action you want on AWS Connect. And this is for all resources in these. So it's this policy is just good for all resources. In particular, these in here. Okay. So it's like no resource in particular. So this is just like a all resources are able to be addressed with this this Lambda policy. So this particular statement right here, this just binds the Lambda role to the actual policy. It's very straightforward. So okay, so this is something kind of not really new, but in Terraform, this is a statement that has to be there. So basically, what this is saying is you can create events. So this basically is going to create an event that's going to fire off the Lambda function whenever I upload a CSV file into the S3 bucket. So anytime an object is created, anytime something is put inside anytime something is put inside the S3 bucket that has the extension of CSV, it's going to fire off this Lambda function. And that's what this is. So it's S3. It's an S3 bucket notification, and it's going to fire off this Lambda function. So it has this sub statement right here that's saying, okay, which Lambda function do you want to trigger whenever we have an object created in S3 that has a file name that ends with CSV. Okay, if you miss this, then you get a lot of errors and so forth. So I mean, this is this is. I'll show you what this looks like inside the console. And here is going to be a AWS permission, Lambda permission that's going to allow the Lambda to invoke. This allows the Lambda function to be invoked. So this works with the this bucket notification up here. So okay, so the Lambda function, all it's doing is says so the files that we're going to be working with in here are going to be. So this is kind of the format that they need to be in. So basically, whenever I upload a CSV file to S3, and it needs to be formatted in this particular way. I'll get into what all these mean in a second. It's going to fire off the Lambda function, and it's going to perform actions on the instance, on the Amazon Connect instance. So this just really is like an administrative tool to help create users a little bit more faster, and that's going to have other downstream benefits. So let me just kind of get right into the deployment. I don't want this video to be going too long. Let's show you what's going on here. So let's see. Does Terraform apply everything? So it's creating the resources right now. I guess I can go back to that the Lambda handler. And let me also just kind of show you that there's no, so this is the Amazon Connect instance. I only have one, user inside here. It's the Cloud Shepherd. All right, look at that, no errors, 8 added. So now we can get to work. So let's take a look and see how this works. Everything works. So this created an S3 bucket. So let's see the S3 buckets, creation date. Okay, so this is going to be the S3 bucket that was just created. How do we know this? Because in that Terraform file, I should have created one that called demo. Let's see. Nope, sorry, there it is. Okay, so this is the one we want to work with. All right, so it's very simple. So the Lambda handler. So every time a file, a CSV enters inside of that S3 bucket, it's going to create an event, and that's what this is saying right here. So that's what really like serverless, cloud computing is all about. It's all about handling events that are take place in the cloud. So this particular Lambda function is listening for, or it's going to be invoked by this S3 bucket whenever I put a CSV file inside of the bucket. So let's go back over here. Okay, so we need to, in order to use this properly, we're going to need to have two separate types of CSVs. One CSV for for adding users, it needs to basically have 6 columns or 5. I think I put 5. Oh, this is copy. Yeah, it's 6. So it needs to have these 6 columns. But whenever we're going to delete anything, it just needs to have these 3 columns. Okay, so I just made it easier. So this particular statement is like just checking the values, just checking the the columns, the length of the actual columns. So that's what that means, and it's extracting out these particular values from each one. So let's take a look. So I actually, I'm going to share this code in GitHub, but I kind of put a little demonstration or a example of how to actually format the CSV to get the results that we're looking for. So the first thing we want to do is, I already have this one prepared. So let's just go ahead and upload this file to CSV. So it's going to create Alex, Dennis, Jubei, and Lester. Should be creating Lester. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's take a look. So upload. Okay, upload. And let me show you how I typically work and kind of debug. Where is everything? So CSV to JSON. So whenever you're in the console, so we know that the S3 bucket is sending events to. We know that the S3 bucket is like the event source, for the function, because we actually see this diagram here. So this is how we know that it's actually going to respond correctly, or at least this is a really good indicator of that. So so the first thing we need to do is, I always go to monitor and I pull up CloudWatch logs so I can see if like my print statements are happening. So I got a lot of them in here. All right, so yeah, so this works just fine. So basically, I mean, it happened so fast, but it basically created all the resources, and I always like to put print statements inside of the my code, so it gives me some situational awareness. Some people like to use loggers. It's all the same thing. It's for this demonstration at least. So if we go back to Amazon Connect, we refresh this guy. Okay, it's got everybody in here. Okay. All right. So good to go. So now let me show you how to actually delete these files to get the information we want to delete these Connect users. All right, so in order to delete, the delete file is actually looking for like the user ID and the instance ID. In order to get the user ID and instance ID of all of the users inside this Connect instance, we just basically want to use AWS CLI, AWS Connect, list, users, instance ID, and then we pass it the, I know that, well, let me just kind of back up a little bit. So how do we know what the instance ID is? So we just want to, so there's a quick, list instances. All right, and it's going to give us this ID right here, this dash 21. So it's ending in 3C21. So this is the same Connect instance I've been using for a little bit. So this comma separated file has a action that says delete, and I'm going to show you how to get this value here in a second, the user ID, and this is the the instance ID. And the reason why that's the case is because this Lambda file, I mean this the function. Let's see here, create, delete. So these are the parameters that the actual Connect client needs to perform the action. In this case, delete user. In this case, create user. So that's that's what we're doing. We're just getting the parameter. We're just getting the arguments needed to pass to these API calls. So in order to get the list users, excuse me, the users. So list users instance ID. We want to pass that to it like so. This is going to give us an array with all the different users that are on the box. So Jubei, Dennis. I want to see why they didn't create the other one, but anyways, it could be like a limit on the instance. So, but this is the ID for Dennis. So let me just go ahead and grab this one and just put it in the CSV over here. So this should delete the Dennis user, and this right here should delete the Jubei user. So I watched a lot of Ninja Scroll growing up. So yeah, let's see if this works. So let's delete this right here. So now let's upload, delete, CSV, upload. I guess we could go to the, take a look at the logs here. Create a user. Let's missed it. Yeah, it has a new one here. Yeah, so delete. So it takes like a second or so. So this is the same log. So these are actually being deleted now. So these two. So now if we go back here to the Connect instance, we're going to be down 2. So right now we have what, 4? And abracadabra, we have 2. So in the comment section, let me know if you have any questions. And thank you very much for watching this video. Y'all have a great rest of your day.